Welcome to the ASOM Pod, where we talk a lot. Ecom is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking
All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the very first ASOM Pod. Awesome. It's spelled ASOM. We'll talk about that in just a second here. But I'm excited, guys. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to first off just start off by high-level introducing people in this room here today. These are our hosts. These are the people will be on every pod that we do. We're going to we put together a very unique room here of people, and I'm excited today to kick this thing off. So first and foremost, I've got John. You may know him from the #1 survival reality show on Netflix called Southern Survival. He's the CEO and co-founder of BattlBox, a subscription, the largest subscription survival company. John, welcome, dude.
No, good to be here.
Yeah, man. And then I'm going to botch the shit out of this, but we got Amer Grozdanic.
Again.
Grozdanic. Okay, we're gonna work on.
We're gonna work on our Slavic names.
Yeah, we're gonna work on this. We're gonna have a whole show on this. He's the co-founder and CEO of Praella. It's a website experience who's built things like for website experience for companies like Billie Eilish, LeBron James, Paris Hilton. Pretty well known in the ecosystem. We've got Bryan MacDonald.
That's right.
MacDonald,
Yeah,
not
like
Mick,
the restaurant.
Not like the restaurant, but MacDonald.
That's right.
He's the director of e-commerce at Almost Pride, a very really awesome but really expensive for me pet food company. Talk about that later. He's the meat guy. He's known on Instagram as Anything But Salad.
Yep.
So if you like meat a lot, you should go follow him on there. He also raps. We've got a little theme song. We'll go record this a little bit later and try to figure this thing out. And he's a marketing guy, right? He's a marketing sales guy. He does a little bit of everything, but marketing is his jam. So I'm excited, guys. I'm excited.
Really
and
excited.
I want to kick this thing off by telling the audience a little bit about like what we're working on here, because I think there's a lot, right? Let's head into the first thing, right? What's awesome, right? Let's zap back, John, Amer. Like you guys started something, and then I kind of came in, but then we realized that we had an intersection. So let's start there, man.
So Amer and I were pretty regularly every week having just a normal call. So BattlBox and Praella does all of our dev work. So we would have this weekly call, 30-minute call, just high level, touching on projects we're working on. And it turned into kind of sharing best practices. Hey, I'm seeing this work. Because it's value add, right? Amer then can take that to his other clients and seeing these trends. And if he's seeing any trends, then we can take it. And it was just this help each other call. And man, there were morsels of data, of good takeaways that we were telling each other. We were like, well, we're having this call. Let's just record it anyway. And if there's anything good, we'll throw it on. And, if it can help one merchant somewhere, one brand somewhere, one agency somewhere, like, add some value. So we started doing that. We're really enjoying it. All we're doing is talking shop. But we wanted it to be something bigger. So we're thinking, well, you have your perspective of an agency. I have mine as a brand operator. There's other perspectives out there, and they're probably wildly different. And if we can compare notes with all of them, this could be something special. And I had been following you, Jimmy, on social and engaging with you. Not a Sendlane customer.
Yeah.
But I, my background SaaS, and I'm always paying attention to what's working out there and what you're doing with community and online and education of best practices. Like, it checks all these boxes of shit I care about.
Yeah.
And so started engaging with you. We had some DMs back and forth, and one of the days I was like, hey, Amer and I are thinking about this idea, this concept, and I outlined it to you, and you were like, holy shit, like I'm actually thinking of this too. And like we compared notes, and we were both thinking of the same thing.
Yeah. And to me too, like what was like really cool for when I started to speak to John, because John and my relationship in the beginning was more centered around what he said, what are we working on? And then involved, and the cool part is John went through an acquisition, we went through an acquisition, and there's all these like wins and opportunities and everything like that. And to me, when we get a room of 4 people that come from vastly different experiences, I know sometimes when you run into that hurdle and you don't know who to call. And if we can share our experiences, what we went through, what we're dealing with, where we failed, it could help somebody. And I think that's the coolest part about this community, this ecosystem. I almost see it as like the medical field. We all share our wins and opportunities, our case studies and all that. And it's really, really cool to build on that.
Yeah. And, just to put a time frame on this, because I think there's we're just going to talk about it, but there's another pod that came out like about a month ago or so about this, like kind of what we're doing here. And we were talking about this in January, ultimately. We actually were talking about it in Austin when he came down for that dinner that we did. But yeah, when John reached out to me, he's like, hey, I've got this idea. And we started talking, and I was like, dude, I've been thinking the same thing, because everybody's verticalized within like, oh, I'm the D2C guys, I'm the agency guys, I'm the SaaS guys, but like no one's bringing that thing together when we're all working in the same industry. Like, I want you guys to be my customers and I want to partner with him, but then you guys need me to operate in a business just like that. And it's like, it's a big full circle. There's the levels of love and hate in this market, of course, in different ways, but that's kind of where, we start talking. I was like, dude, this is right, but now we just need to find a fourth.
Right. And
that's where Bryan came in. So Bryan's story and I were just talking about, we have no idea how we first started talking, but I think the way we started talking is I said some hot take online, and he was like, either thumbs it up or down. I have no idea. I can't remember, but he started talking, and then he was like, dude, I'm running this pet store, pet food company, and let me send you some stuff and check it out. And here I am taking meat on the internet from strange people, right? But I did, and I got this box, and it was all this food, and I was like so grateful for it. And I was looking at it, and then I was looking at it, and I was like looking at like it said like how many patties you're supposed to give to your dogs and stuff. And I've got big dogs, and so he's like, yeah, I sent you a week's supply. It turns out it was one meal's worth. And then he told me how much it costs. And then I was like doing the math. I'm Asian, so I'm supposed to be good at this. And like, boom, I was like, shit, that's going to cost me like a Lamborghini's worth of fucking monthly cost to do this stuff. But in that meantime, I got to meet Bryan. I started talking on Instagram, and we started chatting, and I really liked his content on Anything But Salad. And I started to like check it out, and I was like, dude, this guy, he gets marketing, and he's got a great personality, and I feel like we could jam and jive around the perspective thought process behind all that stuff. So, Bryan, I'd love to hear how you thought about this when I approached you about it, because it was a couple weeks that I approached you to talk to you.
No, it was really cool too, because, well, first of all, when you sent me the name of it, and you guys probably laughed at me, I'm like, how do we pronounce this, right? So let's take a step back. Like, awesome, how it's broken down. It's agency, SaaS, operator, and then marketing. But I was pronouncing it. I'm like, hey, this I forgot how I even said it, and you guys are like, no, it's awesome.
It's awesome.
It's like, oh, okay. So for those of you that are listening, it's awesome, right? But it's really cool. It's really interesting, because when I started in the e-com space, just to your points, everyone has their own team that they're playing on, right? But the opponent is the same. And teams don't really come together a lot, at least in the marketing side of it, right? It's like they have their marketing secrets, I have my marketing secrets, but there's really no correlation between any sort of relationship within it. So when you approach me with the idea, I love talking. I'll talk all day long. But to build a community behind it, I think it's super important to come from different viewpoints, like we're setting up here now, but also a way in which we can help those D2C brands, those SaaS brands, but then also trickling down to small businesses, right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm a 4th generation family owned and operated company that I work for. And, the whole landscape behind e-commerce is like something that's so foreign.
Yeah.
And that's how really 99% of businesses are small. They don't really know what to do, how to do it. They don't know who to go to. So this is a cool platform, not only for folks that we're used to talking with and having relationships with, but trickling all the way down to your local pizza joint, right?
Yeah.
Like, them listening to this, there's extreme value add, right?
Yeah, one of the cool things, so if I'm looking at this success and things I've figured out in the last few years, and I have to attribute it to a certain thing, right? It's very, very clear. I immediately know what it is, and I'm in 3 different mastermind groups of peers that are all ecom based. So Sub Summit has one that I'm in. Jordan West runs one that I'm in, and Ryan Hogan runs one that I'm in. And I leave those calls with like takeaways and notes, and it's like this re-energizing vibe, and I have takeaways, and it's such a big deal. And those things that I apply are what move the needle in the business. And those conversations that we're having, they're behind closed doors, which doesn't really matter for us. But if there's listeners and they can hear what we're saying all these things that we're trying that isn't working and things that are working, and it can take the time of execution for someone, like from here to there, and it's exciting because there's going to be takeaways.
Yeah.
My big thing, and when I talk to everyone, and I'm 100% honest about this, I had this 12-year journey in the e-commerce ecosystem, and in the beginning, it was, when I say me and my co-founder, whoever, and we trying to make it work. But when we really started to take away, especially with Praella in the last, 7 years now, we are strictly a product of our ecosystem and the people who helped us along the way, people who believed in us, gave us a chance, partners who we work with, other e-commerce brands, a lot of people from Shopify, Recharge, Yotpo, you name it. There's people that have helped me personally and us as an agency when we couldn't offer them anything in return.
Yeah.
And this is, for me, such a cool way to hopefully kind of provide back.
To do the same.
Whether it's somebody
Yeah.
like reaching back out to me personally, or whether it's somebody listening to this. And I know too, and I want to give John, and he's been recognized for this, deservingly so, any person that I ask him to talk to a merchant, he's like, send an intro. Why
Yeah.
you're asking? And that energy is so cool. One of the things we were so worried about when we started our recordings, who could be the other two people that can really buy into this? And what I really loved about you guys, and I was worried about it, and I actually told him this yesterday, I felt a little bit guilty. We were like, we don't want to remove from our energy. We don't want to remove from our mentality. And when you guys came in, you guys came with this force. And I'm like, how do I keep
good
up?
force there.
Yeah, it was a really good force. And we were
Like aggressive but loving.
yeah. It was really cool. But to have that.
You, Bryan.
I messaged John separately one day. I was like, I can't keep up. Can you give me a summary of what just happened?
Yeah. That was good.
Yeah.
And when things come together, I mean, the same thing. Like when I wanted to do this, it was not about let me go sell on my product or start a podcast around my company. Like I wanted to do this in a personal way, and I think this is very key for everybody who's listening to this. Is none of this is about our companies. This is about our experiences, our learnings, and really core to what John said earlier, perspective, right? We have so many topics we talk about in the market. And obviously, when two brands talk to each other, your perspective is going to align. But then you talk to the agency guy, you talk to the SaaS guy. We all have different perspectives of the same thing, and we see it in different ways. But to your goal, we're all trying to do the same thing, right? I was just starting this pod when we were talking about it. It's like, you need me to send your emails, but then I need you to pay for those emails, and you need this guy to make your emails. It's like we're all an ecosystem. And if you look at a lot of the pods in the market today, they're so siloed out. Even you two talking, when I got attached, I would watch these little clips on what's that called again? On LinkedIn often about yours, and you would just take hot takes. I mean, we're going to learn that John's going to do a lot of hot takes here, and I might follow up with him, maybe not as spicy as his, but he had a lot of hot takes, and I enjoyed that because I feel like that's real and raw.
Yeah.
I found it funny last night talking about perspectives. We're talking about what would we want to do next, and John goes I want to get into SaaS. Jimmy looks at me, are you sure?
But that was the question. It was, in 5-10 years, what's the next chapter? And I confidently, said software. And Jimmy's, who fucking is in software, was like, man, the grass is not always greener. Have you thought about AI and what AI is going to do to that landscape? And man, the entire drive home, I was like, fuck.
Dude, I just ruined this man's 10-year plan. I
right.
did with one line. But let's jump right into that, guys. Let's talk about the future of e-commerce and the future of everything. Look, there's technology. The industry is heading to different places. Obviously, the environment right now is pretty tough in the market, and we've seen the big boom that's occurred over time. And it's been a continuous change in the environment. And I'll start off with my little take here. I think I have a little pedestal take thing that I take on e-commerce. So e-commerce, and I did e-commerce as a brand in 2013. So that's when I started e-commerce. I started my first Shopify store back then, right? And so it's been over a decade since I've seen this thing move on. When it first started, e-commerce was just an easy barrier versus retail, right? If you were a brand before, what did you do? Well, you'd build the product, you go to consumer testing, you go knock on 1,000 doors, Costco and everybody, please sell my product. I promise you it'll do well. And then most
this
of
was
them,
a hack.
Yeah, and most of the people failed, and then they came up with this hack of e-commerce, right? Sell direct to consumer, low barrier of entry. Now here's where my hot take starts to think off when I think about the future. Though it's a low barrier of entry, as you scale, the barrier of being able to facilitate becomes incredibly hard. And what I mean is, hey, you got to go spend $3 million a month on advertising. And hey, like you have to grow this team with like no cogs because you have all these softwares and things to operate this business. Where if you think about it, in retail, a lot of the things that we do today in e-commerce aren't necessary because someone else is doing them for you and someone's taking them for them because they have the one thing that matters most often, which is audience, right? The traffic, right? At the end of the day. So my take is that e-commerce is got a glass ceiling. And the glass ceiling is this. Look, there'll always be brands that take off. There'll always be things. There's always outliers. But for most people, in order to scale e-commerce, it's just a channel right now. It's a channel to get you to a place, to get you to retail, to get you out of this rat race ultimately.
Yep.
And so like I look at this channel as a glass ceiling one. It's why the market generally is younger in nature when you look at it. And then secondly, like they die pretty often too, right? It's like I saw a brand yesterday, and I'm not picking on anybody, but like I saw a brand die because they just lost $1 million of funding, and I'm like, that's not much.
Right.
But like that's how fast the brand can die after like 7 or 8 years. You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not pulling I'm sorry for that because it's a customer of mine too. But like seeing that just made me recognize how much that in e-commerce, and I think they had a retail storefront too, didn't they? Yeah. So they're retail too, and they still couldn't get it to go, right? It's a tough thing. So my topic here is like, let's start with like, you know, obviously a little bit about like where you've seen, and that's I think will be good. But like I also want to see where you think it's headed. So I'll start with you, Amer. Like, what do you think, man?
I spoke to John about this a while ago. One thing that's very interesting to me, and there's a lot going on with it now, is how e-commerce evolves. So I remember talking to John. He used to tell me, you know, he used to acquire customers for $3 a pop.
Oh, yeah, 2015?
Yeah.
Dude, I used to get 2-cent leads online in 2010 on Facebook. Like, that's how good it used to be.
Yeah,
where
Facebook
I
was
used to
great.
grow. I mean, I started my world in affiliate, right? And starting it off to get leads, it was all about getting leads to acquire a list, right? And back then, there was no spam rules and all that stuff. It was very light. So it was just about getting lists, and then you would swap people, right? So I'd pay 2-cent leads, spend like $200, $300, get like a bunch of leads. And then I would go swap my friend with his leads because there's no spam laws, and we just swap, and I grow this huge list, right, real fast and make money off it. But like 2-cent, so I'm going back, outdating myself, but 2-cent leads is where it started. So go ahead.
And I'm sure at that time too, I never like dabbled into affiliate marketing, but most companies didn't believe in email.
No.
And it was like you had to force them to get on. So even the inboxes were a lot clearer, and the noise wasn't there. One big thing I was hot on is TikTok Shop for the new generation. And I don't know what's going to happen with Congress and everything that's happening now, but
Not looking good, buddy.
But I thought that could be kind of the next evolution in e-commerce. Now, could Meta or somebody else rip it off or whatever? Sure. So I was hot on that. Now, one thing I'm always big on, and something I appreciate about John, is early adoption of channels. You had the Facebook brands, then you had the Insta brands, then you had the TikTok, the Snap brands, and you can really build a following. The important part is, can you sustain it once the competition starts to get in? For me, e-commerce, I think it, for the next 3 to 5 years, and I'm a big believer in this, maybe even longer, it is going to be driven by Shopify and their innovation. One thing I love about Shopify, and I'm huge on it, and we went all in on it, is they are a product-first company. And when they release stuff, for the most part, right off the bat, it can help a merchant. Now, for me, it's going to be interesting, and I have a friend who is in big media. He runs accounts of 300 million for large accounts. And one of the things he told me, and there's a lot of conversations in the media space, is that the leverage is going to go from social and tech companies into publications. So what they already started to do is buy ad space through publications, because they're going to now leverage a lot more data. And that is whomever adopts to that, I think, is going to see the most fruit out of it, where people who continue to invest into social, that number is just going to go up. The other component that is already happening, and we all knew was going to happen for me, is the aggregation or consolidation of brands, kind of the way it happened in SaaS about 10, 15 years ago. I think that's going to happen, and we're going to either provide a lot more ammo to already large organizations, or we're going to get to see new household brand names that we trust.
So I agree with most of that. I think the Shopify, I'm a Shopify Plus customer.
Are we sponsored by Shopify yet? I feel like we just did an ad for them.
But I'll throw a little turn in that, right?
Okay,
so you're saying, the next 3 to 5 years is gonna be dominated by them. I think it's dependent on something very, very, very key. So they've had their success, great products, right? No one's gonna discount their products and how awesome they are. But it's arming the rebels, right? It's giving the entrepreneur and the merchant the tools they need to be successful and empowering them, right? That's important. That's how they built where they got. Now they have to balance that with shareholder value. And I think that's where, they just did a recent price hike. If you didn't want it, you had to do a 3-year contract, which, that's a long time, right?
You signed a contract.
But think about it. In 3 years, let's say in a year, you're like, Shopify is no longer for me. By the time
Well, if I decide that in a year, I'm fucked because I have 2 more years in the contract.
But no, I'm just, I know, but look at it this way. Let's say
I hope that doesn't happen.
You start to have pain points in a year.
Yeah.
By the time you vet platforms, by the time you find an implementation partner, by the time you get your team to be aligned on everything else you're doing, there's like 2 years are going to go by just like that. That's what people forget.
I don't know if it's that long. I think vetting, migration, that whole thing, like aggressively, 6 months, 8 months.
Would you actually go somewhere to another platform? Wouldn't you just start building your own custom at that point?
So when this whole we stayed with Shopify, but there was some funkiness where we were using Recharge Legacy, and so we had 2 checkouts depending on subscription versus one time, and we were using Braintree, and they told us that wasn't an option anymore. And if we wanted to stay on Shopify, we couldn't use Braintree anymore. And if you look at the credit card rates, it was about, with no growth for us, it was going to be about $200,000 more a year in fees.
Wow.
It's a big number.
Yeah.
So we looked at all options, right? And, we came to the conclusion. Now, we negotiated that down. It didn't end up being that much. And it was an increase, but it was palatable. But even with the palatable increase, we decided Shopify was still the best option.
Okay. Hot take. We gotta switch this real quick, right? Shopify now. No. You're not on Shopify.
No.
Where are you at,
No,
Bryan?
I mean, the chances are, after I talk right now, BigCommerce will never, ever sponsor this podcast. Okay? so we're just going to get that out in the air. I apologize, guys.
Maybe they will.
Maybe they will.
Hold on. Let me disclaimer. This is not my personal hot take. This is Brian's hot take.
This is all me. This is all me.
So please don't.
I like BigCommerce.
Jimmy, John, and Amer are
I'm
not.
putting my hands up and for my own professional reasons.
Just for the record, when that thing happened with Shopify, I told him I would not be his friend anymore if he left Shopify. And when I found you on BigCommerce, I was like, how do we kick him off?
And then I came to you and said, we're getting it.
This is like the green bubble thing. I mean, this guy uses this green bubble Android thing, messing up our chat.
Yeah, he's got
every day.
We get these like terrible grainy videos that look like they're from 1995.
This is the 3rd time today I've been green text bubble.
Your business is on Shopify, but your phone's on BigCommerce. That's essentially.
Boom! That is exactly right. That's the contrarian thing. All right, tell us about this thing.
All right, so when I joined Oma's Pride, right, fourth generation family owned and operated company, they very exclusive to the New England area, and they were like, hey, more people want our product. We need a website. That's typically the small business route, right? Where it's like, hey, our services or product is taking off. We want to be able to offer it to more people. Yeah. So we need a website. Yeah. That's sort of the approach. And like 9 years ago, they just decided, hey, BigCommerce is for us. And I also feel like, I think Jimmy touched on this last night, BigCommerce does a great job with those mom and pop shops that like sort of don't really know what's going on.
Well, they'll hold your hand.
Yeah, yes. That's how they started their journey. If you go all the way back to when they started their build, like 12, 13 years ago, they were all about SMB.
Yeah,
right?
and in all seriousness too, though, like, we all can pick our battles with a bunch of platforms, whatever. But, BigCommerce did and does their job for the ecosystem, and that's something that's to be
for sure. But to the point where I got in there, I wanted to make a lot of changes right away, right? So, one of the biggest portions of this is the e-commerce pet food industry is very personalized. It's very driven by product selectors, and the product selector options on BigCommerce are just dog shit, no pun intended. Now, when I went to go scope out the work and really look at bringing in a dev to do it, for every 40 amazing Shopify devs, there's one BigCommerce, right? So it's very hard to find someone, especially that has like the pet niche behind it, to build something the way that we wanted it built. And we were talking a lot of money for a family-run business. So when I went to them with the numbers, it's like, it doesn't make sense to build a product selector just for a platform that we're really not happy with. So that's where over time, it's like, all right, we got to make the move to Shopify. And I reached out to him. I'm like, we're making the move soon. So we are migrating over to Shopify. It's just a matter of getting it all like greenlit and approved. But sometime this year, we will be moving over to Shopify because of all the custom dev work that's needed in BigCommerce to make it the experience how I want it to be for the customer.
And you think you can accomplish that on Shopify?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. And I can pretty much tell right away if a website's built on BigCommerce or Shopify just from the UI experience on mobile alone. But yeah, no, we're really excited for it. And I think it's the like I said, the customer lands on our website. The first thing that, especially in the raw pet food space, they don't really necessarily know for like someone new to brand what to buy, how much of it to buy, right? So you have to throw them through that product selector, put them through like a custom journey. And hey, this is what we want you to buy, and they just add to cart, boom, done. But that's not necessarily possible out of the box with BigCommerce without spending 30, 40, 50 grand on custom dev.
Yeah, even their checkout experience. I mean,
not great.
The BigCommerce checkout experience is far behind from what I believe Shopify has done with theirs.
Yeah, and especially after the latest updates, Shopify is way ahead.
So our future of e-commerce is going to be looking good compared to what the company's been dealing with for the past 9 years, right?
So you think you're going to unlock a lot?
So yeah, I think so. And we're also too, right? We just opened up a retail distribution channel about 18 months ago. And the pet food space is a little bit different than other e-commerce brands where retail still plays like a significant role because there's value add to the customer where you can go into the store with your dog. They can see your dog. Hey, my dog has, this allergy or whatever. Here's the products in the store. Walk them through the whole process. Very hard to do new to brand and especially new to like raw food, which is what we offer, to do so online without spending X amount of money on education and deciding what platform to put that education out on. They get that in retail. So retail is still a huge chunk of the pet food industry in comparison to like other industries.
The pet industry is interesting in general. So we saw this huge spike during the pandemic. BattlBox benefited from the spike, right?
Yeah.
Most e-com brands did. D2C brands all shot up because everybody was locked in their home. And, there was this normalization that happened afterwards. A lot of companies failed because they tried to scale too, incorrectly. And you saw this normalization for almost all brands. And the pet-related industries did not have the same normalization. And it's because everybody got these pets during the pandemic, and average lifespan 7 to 9 years.
Okay.
So when everybody else normalized, the pet industry just stayed there and didn't
that's
fall
such
back
a
down.
unique perspective. I didn't even think about that. People bought pets during COVID.
So
People were
7
lonely.
to 9 year
People were lonely.
customers.
Yeah.
And I even read that post-pandemic, a lot of people, shelters got overwhelmed because people were returning pets as
They were
well.
like, wait a minute, if I go to work, what does the dog do?
People didn't think that one out.
No. And it's also, too, a lot of people we were talking about it are taking their pets' health more seriously now, right? They're treating them like family members.
Yeah.
That was never the case ever in human history.
Yeah.
So you're going to see that whole growth chart continue on.
That's a Gen Z thing, I think. I mean, it's the caring community, like emotional side of the Gen Z that comes into place here. I think that's probably part of the pet driving there.
Yeah.
So
That kind of go back to the future of commerce and something you guys touched on. I'm curious what you guys think. So about 10 years ago, there was this whole concept like, why would you need a retail store? Why would you need to go that route? Because everybody was growing and doing well on e-commerce. Now what I'm seeing is like brands like Untuckit, who was an e-commerce first brand. Now they have stores.
Yep.
Are we now entering
Shitty stores. But they do have
Their stores, but their
That-
stores.
yeah,
But
they have
their stores.
locations.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I've gone to one. Yeah.
Yeah, we have one near me too, and I've gone to them. I mean, even like Tesla now had stores and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Do you guys think we're hitting a cycle where some of those brands are going to be distracted by retail? Is this a good addition for them, or is this also opening a space for a new wave of brands to solidify on e-com, or do you guys think the environment is completely different than?
Yeah, so you're spot on. Like you would have asked me in 2015, 2016, what's your retail strategy? I don't have one, and I'm not going to have one because I can acquire a customer for so much less, and
Yeah.
I can just directly go to them. So why would I do retail? It just wouldn't make sense. Obviously, now we have a retail strategy that we're trying to execute. It's interesting because it's a good question because I believe, retail is a totally different animal,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
It sucks cash. It really causes massive, balance sheet balancing and trying to figure it out. Peers I talk to every single day are challenges of, Target still hasn't paid their net 60 bill
Yeah.
that they had to come out of cash for, 6 months ago. So it's a challenge, and I think people will be successful in it, but I think it'll kill a lot of businesses that are trying to make it work. They won't make it.
Yeah, and it's hard too because I mean it sucks our cash,
Yeah.
sucks it. Now, and it's also a completely different strategy. Like our retail, they're buying our 4-ounce treats, right? They're buying. We have a whole new product set just for retail because retail stores that push our product want those retail customers to be frequent customers, right? So our online stuff's all bulk pretty much, and our whole new product set for retail is completely different. So now you're spending money developing new products just for retail,
Right.
right? You're trying to buy out spaces in those retail stores to carry our product, and not only that, now you have to supply your distributors. So you're spending so much money in comparison to ecom, but half your customers are still in retail, right? So it's like you can't just cater to the 50. In our industry is obviously different than most, but it sucks up cash not just for those reasons, but also some brands where you're creating specific product sets. You have to really be in control too of your supply chain, and you have to, like, we handle everything A to Z. If you're relying upon all these other companies to make retail happen, you sign these big contracts, you better have the fucking product. And that's like one thing that we can do because we make everything ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We're not, drop shipping. We're not ordering from overseas. Like everything's made at home. So you have to be in control of that as well because when you sign those big nuts over, you better have the nut to give them.
So when you order food, Brian goes to the back, finds a turkey, finds a pig, finds some beef, and he's just like.
Do you guys have the turkey still?
No, so the turkey farm stopped before Oma's Pride became Oma's Pride. We still have our turkey connections, right? So we have farms now that are relationships for the past X amount of decades that we get our turkeys from. So the human food side of the business is still a portion of it, just not big. That's mainly held together as well for every Thanksgiving, where the company comes together and we help feed 100,000 people every Thanksgiving. So that's still how like the turkey side of it still runs. But then also for all of our turkey mixes, turkey products, turkey necks, we have that connection to get turkey at a really good price.
So, question for you guys, and maybe John and Brian, you guys have insights on this. So when we talk about transitioning to retail, what's the trade-off of acquisition cost online to what you have to spend in, or the margins on the retail side? I mean, is the chase worth it for everyone?
I mean, it's a valid question, and we're going down this path now, and there's situations where it's not.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense, right? Like, there's some intangibles though, right, that you don't necessarily know what that variable is going to do to your data set, where it might not be as profitable to be in retail at a certain store, but the eyeballs and the brand recognition and the tide raising all ships is a thing, right? It's just like, if you look at connected TV right now, connected TV advertisement, the actual in-platform conversions are sometimes not very palatable if you look at it in this vacuum. But you look at your Facebook ads and what your CPAs do over there when you're running connected TV. So it's part of, and I really hate the word omni-channel. I hate that word, but it's part of that omni-channel approach.
I'll be the first one to say that when I enter a Target or any store, and I see one of the brands we work with, I take a picture and I send it to our team.
Oh, when I see a brand that I know,
Yeah.
like I don't even work with them, I just know them. I like text it to them. I'm like, dude, I saw your stickers, and they're
Yeah.
like, cool, man. We're in like thousands of stores.
But you know what? Retail legitimized, right? Like when you're in retail, it feels legitimate. I
Yep.
mean, that's part of it.
Yeah, you're right.
You know?
You're right.
And that question, you know, Amer, like when you were talking about that, I had a different question, but it's very similar. It was like the pros and cons, right? How much money, time, effort, energy are you spending on e-commerce or trying to make that channel work versus when you think about retail? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cost, there's a lot of risk involved, but so is with e-commerce. The difference is I can spend money on ads, and then that ads could potentially return money, or I can send product to a place, and then their person could take it, or you could get it back, right?
Yep.
And that's something there. So, you know, continuing on that question.
No. So I think it's tricky for us because our market share for retail isn't big box. So we go independent pet. Now, independent pet, there's thousands of stores like across the United States. But then, you know, everyone gets their nut, right? So now you're given, you know, 20 to 30% to the distribution company. They're taking their 20 to 30 to the store, and that store is like essentially doubling their EDLP. And that's typically what the pet stores do. But then you also have to have that price sensitivity on list pricing online, right? So if I put out an email, and now I've, you know, grown our email list to, you know, a very, very good number. When an email goes out on a sale product I'm trying to move that's going to go bad, the retail customers get that, right? And then they're like, wow, all right, well, I'm just going to go on almostpride.com. Now the phones go off from 58 stores across the United States. Hey, your lamb lung's $8 cheaper than it is in my store. Like, what the fuck? You know, they get pissed. So now you have that like price sensitivity of your products being sold out in the world and on Ecom, and now I'm the bad guy, right? So now I'm like, fuck, what do I, you know, how can I help, you know, facilitate this? And so that's sort of the direction that, you know, we're moving in, where retail sort of has their own product set. So that way it's sort of, it's not really price competitive in regards to like what I'm doing on Ecom, because they're packaged and they're presented in different variants and forms in retail versus Ecom, because then it's just a fighting battle, you know?
So we work with brands that have like map pricing and all that fun stuff, and we had to actually create locked fields where like, hey, if you go below that agreed upon price, it won't let you publish the product and things like that. In that sense, have you guys thought about, and this is, I used to work at Target, we used to do this a lot, like with Nintendo Wii's and PlayStations, we couldn't discount them, but Target will be, well, if you buy a PS3, 4, whatever from us, we'll give you a $100 gift card.
Alternative discount.
So you're not devaluing the product or whatever agreement you have. This is just like, if you buy from us, this is what you get.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I like that a lot. And like I said, the independent pet space is like so much different than anything I've ever experienced before in the other industries I'm in. It's, you know, something could come out, a sale or a new product launch on Ecom, and it affects them more than I think like we realize, right? Because these stores are so small. The key is to get in 2,000 or 3,000 of them, right? We just started. We're in like 800 or 900. Probably going to get to that like 1,500 number by the year's end. But what I do, and this is like what I struggle with, is what I do online impacts their like lives. So like these are mom and pop shops, like hopefully profiting 60, 70, 80 grand a year just from running their store. But like if I take away business from them, now it makes like me feel bad, right? Because it's a huge, you know, we're making a ton of money in Ecom, but our retail channel, if you look at it as a whole, is growing to be something awesome. But when you affect certain stores, you're not affecting one company, you're affecting all these families across the United States. And that's the one part that I like struggle with when I want to do stuff on Ecom. That's like the one thing that like really keeps me up.
That's such an interesting take there.
Yeah.
Like he's thinking about like basically his, not the retail effect, but what you can affect the end retailer, the guy who's selling your product for you, by having a direct-to-consumer line, which is probably why you have to have different products and retailers. So they can't be like, well, I come to your website, I can buy it for 20% cheaper.
Free
and it has
shipping.
Free shipping. Why would I buy it from the retailer?
Yeah.
And I don't even have to go to the store, right?
Yeah.
But that's why you create different products that are replenishable, smaller, right? You sell the bulk online. Interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Amer? Like, when people come to you and they go, hey, I have this great retail, because you've got some brands, right? Like, you got cool brands, and they're like, I'm in retail. I mean, I'm in retail right now. I'm crushing it. I'm doing well. I've got a good thing. I want to open direct. Why do they want to open it? Like, what do they think is going to happen?
It's, again, the beautiful word omni-channel.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
and I think it depends. Like, what I like to have conversation with founders, with marketers, e-commerce manager. like what is the intent? Some people do have exit strategies, and all they care about is top line.
Yeah.
Sometimes people come to us and it's like, hey, I got to improve my bottom line. Everything's working great. I don't know how to retain customers, whatever the case is. So I think it's a mixture there, but I think it's all about diversification. And because like, let's say you're in Target. Target could come to you tomorrow and say, we don't need you anymore.
Yep.
And then what? You got to lay off a bunch of people. So I think a lot of brands, when they get the opportunity, they try to invest into diversifying where the revenue comes from. Yeah. So if one thing goes awry, they have something else to lean back on.
I
so
like that. Omni-channel's diversification. It's less...
Just from a revenue standpoint.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit less of a thinking process. But it's a good thought process because... And that's kind of been my, like, challenge that I've had in my head about, like... You know, I think about this in a very different perspective because as the SaaS company, and we'll talk about the whole AI thing later on in another episode, but as I look into the future, I have worry and concern in weird, unique ways because I looked at the market and look at the evolution of the market. And I agree that there is going to be probably less big brands online as we continue to move up because there'll be consolidation. That's natural, that happens, but there'll be more separation, right? Retail is not getting easier to come in, but the perception of how to get into retail is getting easier right now than it used to be, right? Because you can have a Zoom call. You don't need to go travel to Alabama or where is Little Rock, right? Arkansas for Walmart, for example, right? And you don't have to go travel places. You can just take a Zoom call. Suddenly your level just got that much easier.
And not just that. I think something that we overlook with e-commerce is the way it connected. For example, John to Ryan Hogan. Ryan has connections, John has connections, and if, let's say, John gets into a retail store and he knows that somebody else is trying, he can make that introduction now.
It's a good old boys thing still, right?
Yeah, but before everything was disconnected, brands in different categories didn't necessarily talk to each other unless they maybe went to a conference, unless there was, I think the environment was completely different, where now, going to the medical field, everybody's trying to help each other out. I even know...
not everybody, but there's a larger amount in the past.
Yeah, I think in my group, in my circle, anyone I ask for advice or to talk to a merchant, I've never had somebody say no.
Yeah.
And that is something that's really dear and heartwarming to me.
But do you think that's generational as humans, or do you think that's actually business related? Because that's two different things that are changing right now, right? Like, if you think about it, like, generationally, we're more kind, helpful to each other than maybe the older generation was because they're more siloed to their job. You know what I mean? Like, you ask our parents to go help their friends that does the same thing. They probably, like your dad, right? Like your dad's, like my dad, blue collar, like you did things, right? And if I think it was a painter, right? Or a house. What was your dad?
Yeah, he's carpenter.
Carpenter.
Yeah.
So if you're carpenter, his friend asked him, he's a carpenter. They probably didn't talk about business probably.
They help each other out.
Oh, they do help each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think
community's still there. Okay.
It might be the Bosnian community too. Like for example,
I think that's what it is. I think you're talking about overarching generational. That is a piece.
Yeah, because like the ice cream shop down the store, be like, F those guys on the street. They use milk in theirs. We use soy or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? Like, that's usually the thing that we've seen as the stigma in the market. And you're right. Maybe that's Bosnian, since you're from Bosnia and you've got like...
that's definitely what it is.
There's a different root of that, right?
I played golf, really quick story, with my grandfather. Talk about generations, right? Incredible golfer. Rest in peace. Hit an amazing shot one time I was playing with him. This guy that we were playing with was like, hey, Ralph, what'd you do there? And he didn't like tell him. And then I'm like, why didn't you tell him? He goes, fuck that guy. Okay, all right. I guess we're not sharing golf tips here to a nice guy that's playing 18 holes.
There was a little more of like survive and be the best and be competitive in the older generations. And as you get younger and younger, they become more community driven.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely true.
But the other thing, too, we have to think about the landscape of before is communities were locked into a geographic area.
Yeah.
You could only get a job in that community, or you had to drive 1 or 2 hours away. So I think the lifestyle that we had compared to work from home now or shorter commutes, whatever the case, I think was completely different.
Sure.
So I think people like, well, why would I, talk to some other plant if they do the exact same thing that I do, and then they can take my contract away and I have 40 employees I got to feed.
Yeah.
So I think it was a little bit different, and I think we have to be courteous and cautious to that. I also think, and every generation has this, and it has different impacts, whether it's a depression or recession and all of these things. And there's some people from the Great Recession that lost everything they had. And of course, they're going to be a lot more reserved and try to protect and survive. So I think it's important to.
That might be right there.
Yeah.
You might have nailed it right there. Generationally, they saw their parents,
Yeah.
right? Our parents saw their parents have a depression, lose things, things, and suddenly things got closer, tighter to the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I think the easiest thing to do is to look at each other and assume things about each other.
Easy.
But people react and act in specific ways because they might have blemishes of the experiences they had in life. And some people, because of the way they're wired, they get motivated, they maybe become a lot more open. And there's people that just don't like to talk about it because it hurt them so bad and they don't know how to handle it. So, yeah, I think there's a lot there.
Yeah.
So thinking of other parts of the future, I'm thinking one thing we really haven't touched on is just how consumer behavior is changing. Because consumer behavior is constantly changing in everything.
Yeah.
From traditional merchants, brands, and who they buy from how B2B sales work. Like everything changes.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing, it actually goes back to your generational thing. I'll start there and we can continue on this stuff. But I think the biggest change that's happening right now with the market is the people that are owning and operating and driving these businesses are evolving. And what I mean there is like the people are retiring and the people who had that business acclimate of an old playbook, the thing that they've done for 50 years of their life, they're retiring off, and there's new generations coming in and the new decision makers are coming in. So, something that worked 20 years ago in an old industry is changing really fast. And then you layer on something like e-commerce, which is like the fastest growing, changing, evolving landscape in this market. That's why playbooks stopped working, right? On the business side, right? But to your point, I think consumer behavior, that's a really good point because, dude, you know this. Subscription, dude, 10 years ago, F you, dude. I would never subscribe to you. Now people are like, I'm subscribed to 90 things and I have subscribed and save on Amazon and this and that. And suddenly it's okay.
Yeah, there's businesses built on
subscription.
On,
your business is built on subscriptions.
But there's businesses built on managing people's subscriptions.
Yes. Building them. Yeah. Yep.
The one thing with subscriptions and all of this, like a lot of stuff that we are doing existed 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I remember when I came to the States in 97, one of my friends, he lived in a floor underneath me, and I went over his house, and he had a stack of East Bay catalogs.
Oh, shit.
I remember
East Bay.
Yeah.
Dude, I used to love East Bay, dude. It was like the best catalog you'd get.
100%. I mean, Chicago's Marshall Fields, 80 years ago, started on catalog subscriptions and people calling in and ordering what they wanted. So, but I think what technology does is enable things to move a lot faster, expand, and create a larger reach. One thing you said earlier that I want to kind of go back to, and it's, I think, very important. You said SaaS and AI, and you were thinking what's going to happen. I'm a big proponent, and this is, I think, in the industry, you have half the people that are going to swim with the flow of the river.
Yep.
Adapt everything they can and try to use it. You're going to have people who resent it or don't adapt or they don't know. Like before you came to Almost Pride, they function a certain way, and now you're bringing a new look to it. I think where we're heading also that's very important in the market is I think there's a big shift in consumer behavior where people are going to start to go against the market. And I'm talking about consumers because everything is getting so expensive. And there's going to be, I don't want to call it a revolution or evolution, where the new generation is going to say enough.
It's called Temu. I know. Oh, John's got a hot take.
Yeah.
Go.
John's twitching over there.
Twitching.
Yeah, so baby clothes right now are so we have a baby, we had him in January. It's one of the reasons why we delayed filming this.
Yeah.
And baby outfit is like $30-$40
Dude.
in the store. Arguably better quality than my wife's getting from Temu right now. Or
You can get
Temu.
a 10-pack, right?
Yeah.
Like a 10-pack for like $3.99.
It's wild.
It's insane.
Like bamboo zipped up the way we want it, and
And you don't care if
And-
he
and-
explodes in it or whatever,
yeah,
right?
but you're getting it in 4 days.
Yeah.
Like not quite Amazon, but better than these retailers, these D2C brands that
True.
aren't getting it to you that fast.
So with the future of thing we're talking, and John and I spoke about this a lot. I think with the acquisition costs going up, the teams of the world are going to come. I think a lot of people are going to start push Amazon and eBay more. We're seeing more brands on Amazon that we never thought we'd see on there.
Yeah.
Going to the globalization of e-commerce and what's coming, I'm just curious. Are you guys my fear is, and look, I'm an immigrant here. I love this country. It's provided me with everything and more I could imagine. I am really, really scared with almost the middleman, because we used to import from China and from abroad everywhere else. Now the middleman is being cut out.
Yeah.
What is that going to do to the economy and the purchasing power of consumers?
Yep.
We're separating. The middle class is disappearing. I mean, I think that's a pretty standard political take, but like, it's separating, and that's exactly what you're saying. Like, the buying power is being pushed up into a market that will control how the market operates, and on the lower side of it, it's going to be really tough. And you're, to your point, like, they're going to go rely on more of the Walmarts and the Amazons and places, because consumers just want trust that they're getting the best deal that they can get. And Amazon and Walmart.com, for example, they enforce that. And to your point there, many brands I know, you ask them, hey, man, how's your business going? Well, DTC, direct to consumer, but dude, my Amazon, taken off, or Walmart, or I'm just going to stop running this operation. I'm just going to stop running DTC, because why?
Yeah.
Right? That's definitely something that I hear often. Why?
Yeah, dude, I was talking to someone that stopped running Facebook ads to their website, and they started running Facebook ads to their Amazon listings.
That's
Which
crazy.
to me, I was like,
That's untrackable, isn't it?
it's not easily trackable.
Yeah, it's not very trackable.
Yeah, because you're not able to throw pixels on.
Yeah, you just have to
on
have
Amazon.
blind.
But it's just a blended cost.
Yeah, how good
Yeah.
your tool. Yeah, you got to use an old blended CPA model
Yeah.
on that. But like, you just have to assume that your product is going to be good and
Right.
will sell, right?
But just you would never have thought you would have ever heard that.
Yeah.
Like, why would you run ads to Amazon?
Amazon's a tricky one too for us and a lot of folks. Obviously, you have to have a high margin product, or else you're just kind of treading water. But I kind of view Amazon, because we're starting our Amazon store this fall, as more of just like a brand recognition sort of like acquisition standpoint, where 10, 15 years ago, it was just Google. Google dominated all search. Right now, that Google's losing share to social. Google's losing share to Amazon.
Everywhere.
So literally, I'm just trying to capture the folks that are dehydrated dog treats. I don't care if you buy it or not, but I want to be seen on there. So we're treating it more just
More
as
defense.
like and just to expose the brand, because the amount of volume you have to do on Amazon with the margins that you need, especially as like to be listed under FBA and be eligible for prime shipping and all that, they're taking more and more nut every quarter, every year. Amazon, that eventually you're going to have to sell something with insane margin at a high volume in order to even make it worth it from a finance standpoint.
And
but
if it's worth it too much, Amazon's just going to start offering
build it out,
dude,
right?
Amazon Basic.
Let me tell you a story. In 2015, Amazon approached us. So we made men's streetwear basics, like kind of like what I'm wearing now. It's a true classic. You're wearing well, might as well ask true classic. A little bit of a true
Clearly
classic thing here going on,
sponsor
but
us.
it's a great product, right? It's affordable, it's cheap, it fits great, and it doesn't feel bad if you have to buy another one, right? Yeah. So we were selling them. Amazon way back in 2015 approached us, and they're like, hey, look, we want to put you on a special program. We want to put your clothes on. We want to front and center. We want to style it. We're going to make you dedicated pages. We actually never went through with it because we were stubborn and hard-headed like idiots back then. But come to find out, what they were really doing was getting market research and data. Yeah. Right? And they were going to create their own
white
basics.
label it, yeah.
And they were basically going to see how we do it and then rip us off and do it for cheaper.
And I have some Amazon Basic shirts.
Yeah, and they're good.
Yeah.
Dude, Amazon Basic clothes is great because it literally is the same thing for like a quarter of the price. Yep. Right? And
those are the battery. I buy their batteries.
Yeah, it's no different.
Yep.
I exclusively buy their batteries.
Me too.
Ooh.
I don't know where it's at now, but I did read a while ago that Amazon barely and sometimes even loses money on
essentials.
Essentials and everything else, but they make their money on the servers and the data.
It's a data company.
AWS.
Yeah, it is 100%. I mean, from books to data company, give them all the credit in the world.
They could run a search engine over time. I mean, they could do a lot of things. They are, right? Yeah. They're the highest consumer. Like, the way I look at Amazon is anyone who comes to Amazon is only coming with buyer intent. They're not. I mean, they might be window shopping, but they have intent to buy.
Yes.
So years ago, I spoke at Google, and Google had this whole thing called micro moments. People go to Google when they want to solve a problem. I think Amazon is the exact same way when people want to buy something. Yeah. You have a micro moment, a need. You probably need it.
You ever do that? Type in things like need to plug hole.
Yeah.
You ever done that? Like, I've done that on Amazon, and then I'll be like, look at all these ways to plug the hole. Like,
that works. I haven't ever searched that way before.
I type in generic ass shit, and it spits back products that solve a problem that I'm like, who would invent this? This is stupid. No. Oh, there's a good tool for that.
I can get it by 2 p.m. today.
Yeah, and 2 p.m. today, right? So convenience and impulse is like bam, bam, bam. So it's like buyer intents, impulse, speed. Like it's check marking everything for you, right? And then it ultimately comes down to one thing: you gotta have a good product, right? You got a good product, they come back.
Yeah.
You know. So, guys, we're at the top of the hour, as incredible as that feels, probably, and this is our first episode, so that was really great here.
Quick.
But you got something else?
No, went by quick.
Yeah, dude, it went by real fast, and
yeah,
it felt fantastic, and very excited. As you guys can see, this first pod, it is all about perspective and having such a depth of story, and you guys will learn more about each one of our stories over the next however many episodes and whatever. This is a video first pod, so if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or wherever you might be listening to, go check us out on YouTube. We're going to be really about it. We're intentionally making sure, like today, we flew here to Atlanta. This is where John lives, and we'll be continuing to fly. Our next taping is actually in Dallas. We'll be meeting up for around an event called Sub Summit. And so, like, the goal that we're kind of doing is we're taking this video approach. We want to shoot these pods. We want to really talk about in depth about our experiences and learnings and give our own perspectives and, talk about the relevance in the world. So I hope you enjoyed the first of the show. I guess it's not even a pod, it's a show, basically, right? So we hope you enjoyed the show. Our next show will come out next week. It's going to be about loyalty, because I think that as we've talked about this, we kind of hinted on a lot of things we're going to be talking about over the next couple episodes: AI, social media. We talked about brand and loyalty. We're going to dive into loyalty next episode, and we're going to jump into more of that next one. So make sure you're following us, you're liking us, you're sharing this. If you're our friend and you like us and maybe you love us maybe a little bit, you'll go share this out so we can get at least more than 300-400 views. We've calculated together that we could get 350 views together between the three of us, or 4 of us here. So we need more, and we need your help and support to get us going out in the market. But we plan to shoot these. We plan to release these every Thursday. They're going to be human video first pods. We're always going to do them together. That's kind of our impact, because we believe that Zoom calls are great, but they're not intimate, and they're not giving that experience. And just so you guys know, we fly in the day before so we can hang out, talk, get our energy flowing here, and then we spend a day really making sure we're doing it. So today we're here in Atlanta, the next one Dallas, and we'll continue on with that. But very excited to be here. Thank you guys, John, Bryan, Amer. Thank you guys for jumping in on this thing. I'm really excited about this thing, and that's our first episode.
It's going to be awesome.
It's a big
It's a fucking wrap.
Awesome.
I see what you did.
You
there.
do see what I did?
Yeah. Awesome. A, agency, SaaS, S-O, operator, M, marketer, right? That's what it means. Awesome. That's how we're going to do it. And we tried to use the theme song of everything is awesome, but apparently Warner Brothers is not cool.
We'll get something. AI will get something going.
We'll get some going, or we'll get Bryan the rapper here to rap us something. We were hitting a beat earlier before we shot this thing. But dude, guys, thank you. Subscribe, share, do all that good stuff, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Welcome to the Awesome Pod, where we talk a lot. Ecom is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking shop.